Let me begin by saying that any conclusions I draw from this postmortem are speculation. Fundamentally, video games are entertainment media, and it is difficult, if not impossible, to account for the taste of your audience. The ambition of becoming popular is fraught with chaos in the mathematical sense, and asserting why something did or did not work with a high level of certainty seems foolish. That being said, there may be some insights to draw from my thoughts on this project. Project Power is a player versus player casual action fighting game with an element of comedy. It was originally conceived as a game similar to the very popular Slap Battles, in which players select a hand, spawn into an arena, and slap one another in order to unlock new hands. We wanted to use the same core loop of choosing a weapon, battling with it, and unlocking new ones, though we didn't want to be constrained by a specific theme in the same way that Slap Battles was constrained by the theme of slapping. The team was fairly small and loosely organized. We didn't have any real structure or leader, and despite the 6 people that contributed to the project, it was ultimately driven largely by myself, a programmer, and another colleague who did 3D modeling. The project was started with a shared attitude that the game was essentially a shitpost. We wanted to make something that was silly, and we wanted to make it quickly. As the project went on, I, in particular, became more proud of what I was doing and began to take it more seriously, which caused friction with teammates who felt like they didn't want to keep up with the level of quality which was now, incidentally, increasing. It was a type of scope creep that I failed to recognize in time, and it quickly eroded team morale and led to many people dropping out of the project. If we had had a clearer vision from the beginning, or had better guardrails in place, such as a director or producer to say no to these increases in scope, we might have avoided this. A game's identity can be measured on many axes, and one of the most common to measure a game with is the axis with casual on one end and hardcore on the other. In theory, it makes sense that a game could fit a happy medium on any axis, but this doesn't always work out in practice. The mechanics of Project Power were fairly straightforward and easy to grasp. You had an attack, a special, and a dash. This, of course, was overlaid on top of Roblox's base mechanics of moving and jumping. Some weapons would change the dash to something special, but in most cases it was a simple, quick burst of horizontal movement. This was already a lot more complicated than Slap Battles, our inspiration, which merely added the ability to attack. For the most casual players, such as children, we were in fact asking a lot. As competent adults and experienced gamers, we were blind to this and didn't factor it into our design. We were not a casual game. However, we weren't a hardcore game either. Players that did become good at the game were often upset with the lack of additional mechanics, such as a block or a parry, which are notably absent. Essentially, our game required a certain amount of skill to play, but anyone with sufficient skill would find the play quickly boring. Thus, we found ourselves in the unhappy medium of having frustrated players unable to play and capable players too bored to want to. The game featured a mechanic which allowed you to gain experience during a single life which leveled you up, increasing your health and unlocking new features such as a double jump and a faster dash cooldown. In essence, this was a killstreak mechanic, similar to one you might find in a Call of Duty game. Do well without dying and gain some power. Players, however, found our use of traditional progression tropes such as levels and experience to be misleading. Often people would see their level reset upon dying and believe the game had broken somehow. Frankly, the game may have done better without this system altogether, as it was another thing that confused new players. This, perhaps, is the most speculative point in my analysis of Project Power. I am not, and likely never will be, a mobile gamer. I do not understand the appeal of playing games on a pane of glass, and I am easily repulsed by the most common design tropes that one finds in common mobile games. That being said, it is hammered into us constantly as Roblox developers that more than half of the platform's audience plays exclusively on their phones and tablets. To make a game that does not play well on a mobile device is to immediately throw away half of your audience. So, of course, we tried to make Project Power playable on a phone. However, there's a difference between playable and fun. None of us on the team were mobile gamers, and so none of us could really tell if it was an enjoyable experience. Sure, we could confirm that you could, in fact, perform all of the actions and that the buttons weren't in unergonomic places, but we lacked the interest and experience that a real understanding of our game's mobile compatibility demanded. I think that fast-paced games, like Project Power ended up being, are almost never fun on a touchscreen, and so it's maybe fair to say that the non-trivial effort we invested into ensuring mobile compatibility was, in fact, wasted. We were hoping to capture the audience of mobile device action gamers, but we never confirmed that that audience even existed, and I suspect that it does not. Project Power was inspired by slap battles, and so we thought of that as a competitor, though that probably gives us too much credit. Due to our focus on engaging combat, we also felt like we were competing with games such as Strongest Battlegrounds. However, we just weren't as good as those games. We weren't as approachable and comedic as slap battles, and we weren't as flashy and serious as Strongest Battlegrounds. It was another unhappy medium where we, a mere fish, had entered a tank ruled by two sharks. We failed to realize that we didn't have anything making us meaningfully unique when compared to our competition, and so perhaps it should be unsurprising that no one chose us over the others. Project Power was originally pitched as a silly game, but it morphed incompletely to a more hardcore battling experience, leaving it in an awkward middle ground that satisfied no one. It had unintuitive mechanics, was not a fun experience for mobile players, and was a poor competitor in its space. A better, more specific vision for the game, such as one that could be laid out in a game design document, would have kept the game from bloating the way it did. A director for the game could have reined in the ideas that didn't fit. We could have tested the game with actual mobile players and learned either how to fix it or that we should ditch mobile support altogether to save time and effort. And finally, we could have looked at our competition and scrutinized our plan more carefully to see if there was an actual niche to fill with our project.